Good morning. It is day 123 of Read the Bible in a Year. Nope, 124 of Read the Bible in a Year. And we are reading chapters 3 and 4. Well, not really a whole lot. Chapters 3 and 4 of 2 Chronicles. Let's dive in. On page 879, if you want to follow along in the scriptures, to all my listeners out there driving on the way to work or what have you, bless you. And chapter 3. And Solomon began to build the house of Yahweh at Jerusalem on Mount Moriah, where he appeared to his father David at the place that David had prepared on the threshing floor of Ornan the Jebusite. And he began to build on the 2nd day of the 2nd new moon in the 4th year of his reign. And these are the foundations which Solomon laid for building the house of Elohim. The length by cubits according to the former measure were 60 cubits, and the width 20 cubits. And the porch that was in front was 20 cubits long according to the breadth of the house, and the height was 120 cubits, and he overlaid the inside with clean gold. And the great house he paneled with cypress, which he overlaid with fine gold, and he carved palm trees and chained work on it. That is some ornate carving, very tedious work. And he covered the house with precious stones for comeliness, and the gold was gold from Parwaim. And he overlaid the house, the beams, the doorposts, and its walls and its doors with gold, and carved cherubim on the walls. And he made the house of the most set apart. Its length was according to the width of the house, 20 cubits, and its width 20 cubits. And he overlaid it with fine gold, 600 talents, and the weight of the nails was 50 shekels of gold. Wow. And he overlaid the upper rooms with gold. In the most set apart house he made 2 cherubim of sculptured work, and overlaid them with gold. And the wings of the cherubim, their total length was 20 cubits. One wing was 5 cubits, touching the wall of the room, and the other wing was 5 cubits, touching the wing of the other cherub. And the wing of the other cherub was 5 cubits, touching the wall of the room, and the other wing was also 5 cubits, touching the wing of the other cherub. The wings of these cherubs spread out 20 cubits, and they stood on their feet, and they faced inward. And he made the veil of the blue and purple and crimson of fine linen, and worked cherubim on it. At the front of the house he made 2 columns, 35 cubits high, and the capital that was on top of each of them was 5 cubits. And he made wreaths of chain work, as in the speaking place, and put them on top of the columns. And he made 100 pomegranates, and put them on the wreaths of chain work, and set up the columns before the Hekal, before the temple, and one on the right and one on the other, one on the right and the other on the left. There we go. I'm not reading well this morning. And called the name of the one on the right Yakin, and the name of the one on the left Boaz. Chapter 4. And he made a slaughter place of bronze, 20 cubits long and 20 cubits wide and 10 cubits high. And he made a sea of cast metal, 10 cubits from one rim to the other round about, and its height was 5 cubits, and the line of 30 cubits measured around it, and figures like oxen were under it. all around it, 10 to a cubit, all the way around the sea. 2 rows of oxen were cast when it was cast. Wow. I mean, can you imagine the magnitude of this thing? It stood on 12 oxen, 3 facing the north, 3 facing the west, 3 facing the south, and 3 facing the east, and the sea was set upon them, and all their back parts were inward. You imagine they're all facing outwards, north, east, south, west. Very similar to the New Jerusalem that's coming. So I could imagine that each of the ox are symbolic of each of the 12 tribes of Israel. There's 12 tribes, there's 12 oxen, and they're holding this sea basin, which, mind you, this thing, I know you can't see the scope of my living room, but this thing is like the size of my living room. Large, very large. You imagine just walking up to this thing and it's sculptured oxen holding this bowl. It's crazy. He made 10 basins and put 5 on the right side. It was a handbreadth thick, and its rim was shaped like the rim of a cup. Like a lily blossom, it held 3,000 baths. Again, this thing is massive. And a handbreadth. I'm not sure if it's this way or from like the base of your wrist to the tip of your finger. I'd imagine it's from palm swell on the pinky side to the index finger, right? That's 3.5, 4 inches thick. Good night, that's a lot of metal. Anyways, I'm getting caught up over the details here. Verse 8, chapter 4, verse 8, and he made 10 tables and placed them in the, verse 7. He made 10 lampstands of gold, according to their ruling, and set them in the Hekal, which is the temple, 5 on the right side and 5 on the left. And he made 10 tables and placed them in the temple. Made 10 tables, placed them in the temple, 5 on the right side, 5 on the left. And made 100 bowls of gold. And he made the courtyard of the priests and the courtyard and doors for the court. And he overlaid these doors with bronze. And he placed the sea on the right side, eastward over against the south. And Hiram made the pots and the shovels and the bowls. So Hiram completed doing the work that he was to do for the sovereign Solomon for the house of Elohim. The 2 columns and the bowl-shaped capitals that were on top of the 2 columns and the 2 networks to cover the 2 bowl-shaped capitals, which were on top of the columns, and 400 pomegranates for the 2 networks, 2 rows of pomegranates for each network, to cover the 2 bowl-shaped capitals that were on the columns. So these bowls, you have a pillar, you have a column, and at the top of the column is this bowl, is what it's saying, and then the pomegranates are just decorative surrounding the bowl. So 2 bowl-shaped capitals that were on the columns. And he made stands and basins on the stands, 1 sea and 12 oxen under it, and the pots and the shovels and the forks, and all their vessels. Hiram, his master craftsman, made of polished bronze for sovereign Solomon for the house of Yahweh. On the plain of the Jordan, the sovereign had them cast in clay, molds between Sukkot and Saradatha, or Saradatha. There it is, Saradatha. And Solomon made so large a number of all these vessels that the weight of the bronze was not searched out. Solomon had all the furnishings made for the house of Elohim, and on the slaughter place of gold, and the tables on which the showbread, and the lampstands with their lamps of refined gold to burn according to the right ruling in front of the speaking place, and the blossoms, and the lamps, and the snuffers of gold, of perfect gold, and the snuffers, and the bowls, and the ladles, and the fire holders, and of refined gold, and the entrance to the house, its inner doors to the most set apart place, and the doors of the temple of the house were of gold. Holy cow, that is a lot of gold. All right, that's it. Chapters 3 and 4. Shalom.